Friday dinner was always the same. Mom's roast chicken, garlic butter mashed potatoes, and steamed vegetables. We sat around the old wooden table in the warm kitchen, yellow light casting familiar shadows on every wrinkle and smile line. I'm Marlene Quinn, 34, a remote software engineer. I sat at the corner of the table between my mother and father. Across from me was my sister Clara, spoon-feeding Lily, while Noah quietly played with a toy under the table. Clara, 38, used to be a preschool teacher, but after her divorce 2 years ago, she lost her job and moved back in with our parents, bringing the kids with her. Since then, the house had become louder, fuller, constantly occupied. Clara always knew how to fill a room. Even in silence, she made others feel smaller. "Have some more potatoes," Mom said, passing me the bowl, her voice soft but not without a glance toward Clara. "You've lost weight, Marlene. Working from home can be stressful, huh?" I smiled, about to answer, when Clara cut in. "What stress, Mom? She works from home, doesn't have to drive the kids to school, doesn't worry about diapers or doctor bills." I didn't argue. I was used to this kind of comparison, quiet, implicit, and constant. It had always been like this. When I was 6, Clara was enrolled in ballet classes while I was put in advanced math. Mom used to say, "You're already good at math, no need for more. Your sister needs to develop her talent." When I turned 15, Clara had an outdoor birthday party with balloons and a live band. Mine was a small cake cut quickly after dinner. "Not everyone likes parties the way Clara does," Mom had said, like I didn't have the right to want attention. I never resented it. I just quietly stepped out of Clara's long shadow and started saving. "How's work today, honey?" my father asked in his even, low voice, eyes still on his soup bowl. "Good," I replied, and then, for a brief moment, I forgot I wasn't ready to share. "I've been pre-approved for a mortgage. I'm thinking of buying a house next month." There was a sharp clink as Mom's spoon dropped to the table. Clara's eyes lit up like I'd just announced I'd won the lottery. "You're buying a house?" Mom said immediately. "Where? Is it near a school? It should have at least 4 bedrooms, right?" I paused. "Well, I'm looking for something small. 2 bedrooms are enough, somewhere quiet near the National Forest, a bit outside the city." Clara laughed, but there was no joy in it. "Marlene, you're planning to live alone in the woods? What about your family, your friends, your niece and nephew?" "I'm not isolating myself," I said, keeping my voice even. "I just want peace, nature, space." "But what if we need a place to stay later?" Clara set her spoon down, eyes serious. "Lily starts school soon. This house is cramped. Even Mom says so. If you're buying, it should at least have space for the 3 of us." "She's right," Mom nodded. "You're stable, no one to take care of. Clara's different. She sacrificed a lot for the family." Again, that word. Sacrificed. I swallowed the invisible lump in my throat. I'd been hearing this my whole life. Clara was the one who gave so much for the family. And me? I was the one who stayed back and kept things from falling apart. When Clara dropped out of school to get married, I was the one who picked up extra shifts to help cover her unpaid tuition, because, as Mom put it, we were struggling as a family. When Clara divorced, I helped cover Noah's medical bills, because she didn't have insurance yet. And now, as I planned to buy a small home just for myself, somehow it was still about Clara. "I just want a small corner for myself," I said quietly. "Not to get away from family, just to find some peace." "Peace without people around you is selfish, Marlene," Mom said, without hesitation. For the first time during the entire meal, my father looked up. His gaze wasn't angry, just empty, and somehow that stung more than Clara's words. "We're family," Mom continued. "If you won't help, then who will?" I set my knife and fork down. My palms were damp with sweat. No one asked if I was tired. No one asked if I was happy with the life I was building. I'd spent 8 years planning this. A small home, a garden, a life without noise or expectations. And the moment I let that dream slip out, They were already reshaping it into another sacrifice. No one asked, "Marlene, what do you want?" Only, "What can you do for Clara?" I looked at my mother, then Clara. My voice was soft but firm. "I'm not buying a house so someone can move in if they need to. I'm buying a home for myself." The room fell quiet. Clara shook her head, disappointment in her eyes. Mom's brow furrowed like I'd insulted someone. I bent down to pick up Lily's spoon as it fell. She looked up at me with curious, innocent eyes. I didn't blame Lily or Noah. They were children. But I was tired of living in the supporting role, and this time I wasn't stepping back. I left dinner earlier than usual that night, claiming unfinished work. No one tried to stop me. They didn't need to. The air at the table had grown heavy enough to make even a goodbye feel like a burden. Outside, the sky still held traces of the late afternoon sun. I drove back to my small apartment. Just me, a row of neatly arranged books on the shelf, the soft hum of my laptop, and a cactus that had survived years on the windowsill. A quiet space. No one knocking. No one waiting for me to make a decision on their behalf. I opened my laptop, checked my work inbox, but couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting back to a browser tab I'd left open earlier. Aspen Brook Real Estate, cabin with garden view. A small wooden house, 2 bedrooms, white picket fence, a west-facing porch. A backyard just big enough for a row of tomatoes. I'd saved it to my favorites list 2 months ago. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. "I called an agent just now. There's a perfect house in Willow Bend near Lily's school. 4 bedrooms, big backyard, even has a home office for you. Sending the link." Then came the link, followed by a photo of a large house with a redwood door and stone steps, like it was waiting for a family of 4. Not for me. Before I could even breathe, more messages lit up my screen. This time from Clara. "That house is amazing. There's a park nearby. Perfect for Noah and Lily on the weekends. Mom said if you buy it, I could pitch in for renovations. Nathan still has some of the divorce money left. There's a guest room too. You could turn that into your office." Nathan, Clara's ex-husband, had been a structural engineer, disciplined, reserved, and admittedly a bit dry, which to my family meant he lacked affection. But what Clara never understood was that he needed a partner, not someone who expected constant support without question. My sister had grown up cushioned, used to others cleaning up behind her. Nathan had endured more than I thought possible until the day he told her, "I can't be your husband, the kid's father, and the only one carrying this entire life." He left behind child support and 2 kids, and Clara stayed, with the belief that someone else would always take over. I read the messages. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete them either. I just sat there staring at the lines of text like they were bricks stacking into a house I never asked to build. Mom didn't ask what I wanted. Clara didn't ask what I needed. They were shaping a new life, using pieces of their own, built on my wallet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind tangled like a spreadsheet in chaos. 8 years of saving, how many home-cooked meals, how many old clothes worn for another winter? Every dollar in my account had a reason: independence, a place where I could breathe without asking permission. The next morning, I woke early, drank my coffee in silence, and booked a viewing for the cabin in Aspen Brook. 3 days later, I got the confirmation from the agent. Saturday, 10 a.m. That Friday evening, I returned to my parents' house, like a ritual deeply rooted. Dad was watching the news. Clara had just finished putting Lily to bed. I sat at the kitchen table with Mom, peeling potatoes. "Have you thought more about the house in Willow Bend?" she asked without looking up. I slowly peeled away a thin layer of skin, then looked at her. "I've scheduled a tour for a cabin in Aspen Brook tomorrow. 2 bedrooms, quiet, near the pine woods." Mom's hands paused. "Aspen Brook? Are you planning to cut yourself off from the whole family?" "No. I just want a space that's mine. That doesn't mean I'm abandoning anyone." She set the knife down and wiped her hands on her apron. "Marlene, A house isn't just for living. It's for sharing. You live alone now, but when you grow old, who will care for you? Clara can't keep carrying 2 kids on her own forever. I nodded. I understand. But that's not a reason to turn the house I'm buying into the family's plan B. Mom looked at me like she didn't recognize her daughter anymore. She said nothing else. The next morning, I drove north, leaving Boulder's noise behind. The road unfolded slowly between rows of trees turning orange and gold. When I turned onto the dirt road leading into Aspenbrook, something inside me softened. A space that asked nothing of me. The cabin was smaller than the photos, but warmer too. The smell of pine, sunlight streaming across the floors, wind brushing gently through the trees. There was no one sighing, no one asking how much I had in savings. I signed the contract within the week. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't post it online, didn't share it in the family group chat. I just paid the deposit, signed the paperwork, and waited for moving day. The following Saturday, I sat at the dinner table like usual. Mom was serving stew. Clara was talking about Noah's bad math grade. I waited until everyone was settled, then said, I bought a house in Aspenbrook, 2 bedrooms. I'm moving in early next month. Silence. Dad set down a spoon, soundless but full of weight. Clara's eyes widened. You already signed? Seriously? I nodded. Mom sat upright, placing a hand on her chest like she'd just been struck. You didn't tell me a word? Clara and I have looked at so many houses, called so many agents. I didn't ask for that, I replied quietly. Clara crossed her arms. And what about the kids? You bought a house with no space for them. That's selfish. It's not selfish, I said. I'm just finally living my own life. For the first time, I said it without fear, without guilt, and without apology. The morning I moved out, the sky offered no sun, no rain, just a muted, silvery light like a quiet blessing from overcast skies. I stood at the threshold of the apartment I had lived in for nearly 8 years, taking one last look at the cream-colored walls, the empty wooden bookshelf, the single chair where I always worked. Everything was neat, clean, and still, just like the life I had led there. The moving truck arrived right on time. 2 men moved swiftly, lifting tables, chairs, and a few neatly labeled boxes. Kitchen, office, garden tools. Nothing extra. I didn't own much, but each item had been chosen with care, in service of one thing, the life I wanted. I drove behind the truck, leaving Boulder without telling a soul. No goodbyes, no announcement. My parents didn't call. Clara didn't text. But I knew it wasn't acceptance. They simply thought I was sulking, and that I'd come back to reality soon enough. The house in Aspenbrook sat tucked behind a line of pines, down a narrow bend off the main road. A small oak porch, 2 windows looking out over an empty backyard. To the left, a strip of soil just long enough for tomatoes, basil, and white chrysanthemums, the kind I'd pictured planting all winter. I signed the delivery form, handed the movers a tip, and closed the door behind me. For the first time in my life, no one called my name from behind. No one asked, Marlene, can you send a little extra this month? Just silence. And me. The first 3 days passed like a dream. I unpacked each box, hung curtains, built the bookshelf, and placed a few herb pots on the windowsill. Each quiet action felt like a declaration. This space is mine. Not borrowed. Not temporary. But on the 4th day, my phone began to ring. First it was Mom. 3 missed calls in 5 minutes. Then came the messages. You need to give us your address. We have to know how to visit. You can't just stay silent. I'm worried. Grandma knows you moved and is asking why we weren't told. Clara's struggling. If you have an extra room, let the kids stay there for a few months. Don't be so stubborn, Marlene. I read each line and flipped the phone face down on the table. I didn't reply. On the 5th day, Clara messaged me. You're hiding like some kind of criminal? The kids miss you. They thought you were going to give us a new place to live. What are you thinking? Abandoning your sister and your niece and nephew like this? Or do you plan to live alone forever? Do you even understand what it feels like to be rejected by the only family you have left? I sat still for a long while, fingers gripping the side of my now cold mug of ginger tea. I knew that feeling very well. The feeling of being overlooked, pushed aside, left behind, for not being the chosen child. I had lived my entire childhood that way. But no one had asked how I felt back then. No one cared. I had grown used to standing in the background. Even now, they still believed that if I wasn't sacrificing, I must be betraying. On the 6th day, I called my phone provider and changed my number. I deleted my social media accounts, left the family group chat, and gave my new address to only 3 people: Evelyn, Jonas, and my department lead at work. People who had never once told me what I should do. They only ever asked, "Are you okay?" That night, I sat on my front porch, sipping ginger tea, listening to the wind sift through the pines. I opened my journal and wrote, "I didn't abandon anyone. I simply chose to stop carrying the weight of the entire world on my back." But the storm wasn't over. On Saturday morning, an anonymous email landed in my work inbox. "Family is irreplaceable. You're pushing your loved ones to the edge just because you want peace. The world doesn't revolve around selfish individuals." No need to guess, I recognized the tone instantly. Aunt May, Mom's younger sister. The same one who always claimed I'd been a difficult child from the start. I wasn't angry. I was tired. And for the first time in years, I didn't stay silent. I opened a new message and typed, "I don't live to revolve around anyone. I live to stop being pulled into the orbit of people who don't respect boundaries." I hit send, then brewed another cup of tea. And this time I smiled. Not because I'd won, but because I knew. I had just drawn the first real boundary of my life. It took me a few weeks to believe it. That mornings could begin with quiet. No urgent messages, no buzzing phone, no gentle reminders that I should think of others a little more. Just sunlight, a cup of herbal tea, the flutter of wings on the porch, the scent of damp earth where I'd started a small patch of basil in the garden. Aspenbrook was a small town, surrounded by pine forests and wildflower fields. Here everything moved slowly, but never felt stagnant. People didn't ask what you did for work. They asked what you liked to grow, whether you baked on Sundays, if you stopped by the little bakery behind the church. After settling in, I began walking through town every morning. I'd greet Mrs. Doris, who made the crispiest garlic bread I'd ever tasted. I'd nod at Mr. Parker, an old man who repaired bikes for middle schoolers for free. No one knew anything about me except my name, Marlene, the woman who just moved into the cabin behind the woods. And that was enough. Jonas was the first among old friends to visit after I moved to Aspenbrook. We'd met in college. He studied interior design, but eventually shifted into freelance landscape work. Jonas was the quiet type, calm, always carrying a small jar of bonsai soil in his backpack, and a habit of fixing things most people had already given up on. When I told him I needed a home quieter than the life I had, he simply said, "If you plant something, don't abandon it halfway. Plants remember who tends them." The day I moved in, he showed up with a bouquet of white chrysanthemums and a small hand spade. He left them on the porch. "Just plant something," he said. "You've spent long enough living for others. It's time to sow something for yourself." We didn't need to say much. Our conversations were always short, but enough. Jonas never asked about Clara or the past. He didn't need me to explain. He understood, and never stepped beyond what I was willing to share. I joined the local gardening club after Grace, my neighbor to the left in her 50s, knocked on my door one morning and said, "We've got a small group. We swap seeds, compost, and stories. If you've got plants, hands, and heart, come." The first meeting was in her backyard. 10 people, most older than me. No one asked about my background, my job, or why I'd moved to Aspenbrook. They asked, "You ever try planting carrots? Does your soil have a lot of clay? Got any purple basil? I'll trade you some kale." For the first time in my life, I was in a conversation where I didn't have to defend my decisions. After that, Grace invited me to the book-sharing group at the town library. 1 book a month, where everyone shared thoughts and no one interrupted. One week, an elderly woman cried while reading the final chapter of The Housekeeper and the Professor. No one told her to stop. I couldn't remember the last time someone had let me be silent without rushing in to fix it. I was slowly growing used to not needing to prove I was useful. No one here expected me to rescue anyone, solve anything, or sacrifice for anyone else. I only needed to be. One October morning, I received a text from Jonas. "You want me to bring over some tomato steaks? Wind hit hard last night. Might have knocked yours down." No greeting, no good morning. Just simple. "And enough," I replied. "If you can bring them, that'd be great. I'll make ginger tea." He came, staked the tomatoes, didn't say much. Before he left, he placed a basket of oranges and a folded piece of paper on the porch. "Fresh picked. Don't eat them yet. Let them ripen a little more." I placed the basket on the wooden table in the kitchen. Sunlight poured through the window, hitting the yellow-orange skins, catching on the veins of dried leaves in the weave. I inhaled deeply. The scent of citrus and soil, soft, full, no expectations, no resentment. And in that silence I realized I was healing. No one told me I had to change to be worthy. No one asked if I had a spare room. No one looked at me as a safety net for someone else's life. I was allowed to live, simply live. And that, at last, was enough. It was a soft Thursday afternoon rain, not heavy, just steady and patient, sinking into the soil like quiet, drawn-out sighs. I sat in the kitchen sifting kale seeds from a brown paper pouch, a gift from Grace the other day. The window was fogged, and beyond it, the pine woods rustled like an old lullaby. There was no doorbell, just a knock. 3 short taps, spaced a few seconds apart. As if the person outside was still unsure they should be here at all. I went to open the door. Clara, standing beneath the porch awning, head slightly bowed, hair pulled into a loose, tired bun, her coat soaked through. Beside her were Noah and Lily, huddled under a transparent plastic umbrella with fraying edges. Their jackets were wet too. But no one complained of cold. No one said a word. I had never seen my sister this quiet. Clara looked up. Her eyes were puffy, tired. Not angry, not proud, not begging. Just one sentence, as soft as the rain. "I wasn't sure if you'd still want to see me, but the kids, they didn't have anywhere else to go." I said nothing. I didn't invite them in, but I didn't close the door either. Lily stepped forward, tilting her face up at me with those wide eyes that had melted me so many times before. "Aunt Marlene, Mom said if we were good, we could come see your flower garden." I crouched down and gently touched her hand. "I just planted white chrysanthemums. Do you like those?" She nodded. And just like that, the 3 of them stepped inside, not as welcomed guests, but as people who had lost that privilege, and were somehow granted one last chance. We sat in the living room, wrapped in the soft steam of ginger tea. I handed the kids warm towels, clean socks, and a few biscuits. Not too many words, but enough to know they were safe now. Clara didn't touch her tea. She held the cup close, eyes fixed on the window, like she was trying to hide inside the glass. The child support. "Nathan stopped sending it last month. Lily's school is asking for the new term's tuition. I've applied everywhere. No one's called back." I didn't interrupt. I just listened. "Mom's furious. Says it's my fault, that I couldn't keep a husband, couldn't manage. Dad, he just said, if Marlene can make it, so can you." I leaned forward to pour more tea. Clara still didn't look at me. Then she whispered, so faint I thought I imagined it. "Back then, I thought you were stronger, that you could carry it. I told myself, she's not saying anything, she must be okay." I froze. I never thought I'd hear those words come from her, from the sister who had always treated my silence like permission. "But now I understand," she said. "When someone stays quiet for too long, people start treating that silence like space, somewhere they can move in without asking. I didn't reply, just looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see Clara as a shadow cast over me, but as a woman falling, grasping for something real to hold on to. "I'm not asking you for anything," she added. "I just don't know where else I can stand without feeling like I'm a burden. So if the kids can stay here a little while, not long, I'll leave after that." I got up, pulled a light blanket from the reading room, and gently wrapped it around the two children now dozing off on the couch. Clara looked at me, lips trembling. But I didn't hug her. I just said calmly, "You don't need to leave tonight, but we're not going back to how things used to be. I won't pretend I'm not tired, and you don't get to pretend you didn't know." She nodded. Tears fell, but there was no sobbing. Maybe they were the first drops of her own kind of rain. Not enough to wash away mistakes, but maybe enough to begin clearing dust. That night, I made a second pot of ginger tea. I set up the spare bed in the reading room. Jonas had left a basket of oranges on the porch with a small note. "Heard there's heavy rain tomorrow. Ginger tea and oranges will keep you warm." I smiled, placed the basket on the kitchen table, and looked out to the garden, where Lily had stood earlier, marveling at the white chrysanthemums. I didn't know if Clara had truly changed, didn't know what would come next, but I knew this: I no longer lived to carry anyone else. Yet if someone came knocking the right way, with humility, not entitlement, I'd still open the door. Just this time I'd keep my hand firmly on the handle. Clara never said how long she would stay. The next morning she woke earlier than I did. She folded the kids' blankets neatly and wiped down the kitchen table. I hadn't gotten around to cleaning after dinner. There were no complaints. I sat on the porch with my usual cup of tea, listening to Lily and Noah giggling in the backyard. They were building a rabbit house out of fallen branches and bits of rope I had left behind. I didn't ask Clara what her plans were. I didn't tell her she had to leave. I simply let it be. The way you let a wound heal slowly under soft sunlight, without pulling off the bandage or saying its name. Clara started making Sunday breakfasts. Not the kind that screamed penance, but quiet, steady gestures from someone trying to speak through action. Fried eggs, toast. A small pot of oatmeal for Lily. No one asked her to, but she still did. One morning I saw her quietly set her laptop at the kitchen table, browsing job postings. She took notes in an old notebook, probably one of Noah's from first grade. I didn't ask if she needed anything. She didn't show me the notebook. No more. "Can you help me with my resume? What job do you think suits me?" None of that. Now it was just her. Not us. One Tuesday evening, I came home to a printed application sheet on the kitchen table. Flat, uncreased. A job opening at the local community education center. Position: STEM class assistant for kids. No note, no request. Just there, like someone laying down a leaf on the floor. Quiet, unceremonious, but meaningful. That night, I asked only one question. "Do you want anyone to take a look at it?" Clara shook her head. I asked Grace. She used to work there. I nodded, and in that dim kitchen light, I realized something was being stitched back together, with threads too fine to see. Lily started collecting dried leaves every afternoon. She pressed them into a thick notebook she called her autumn journal. She added petals, drew squirrels, and stacked the book neatly on the shelf in the reading room, like it had always belonged there. Noah began asking questions about the plants in the garden. One day, I found him sitting silently for hours, just watching a bee hover around the white chrysanthemums, then sketching it with charcoal. I realized then, peace doesn't only heal adults. It teaches children how to live slowly, deeply, and with respect. One Friday morning, Lily knocked on my door, holding a basket of freshly picked vegetables. "Aunt Marlene, me and Noah want to cook you lunch. Don't come into the kitchen, okay?" I laughed. "Then I'll wait on the porch with my ginger tea, deal?" "Deal," she squealed and ran off. I sat outside, sunlight filtering through thinning leaves. Jonas passed by, paused, and handed me a small bundle of dried rosemary. He didn't say much, just, "Winds shifting, winter's coming early this year." I simply nodded. Inside the house, laughter echoed, no tension, no calculations, and I felt something soften inside me. 3 weeks after Clara arrived, I received an email from the Community Education Center. "We were very impressed with the application and preparation of Miss Clara Quinn. She mentioned you as a source of inspiration in returning to teaching. We would like to confirm that with you directly." I reread it, not because she had listed me as a reference, but because she hadn't asked. She didn't push. She didn't plead. She trusted that I would see her effort and decide for myself. I typed back, "I can confirm that. Clara is learning to begin again on her own terms, and she deserves a chance." That evening, Clara came home and didn't say a word. But I saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't about getting the job. It wasn't praise. It was that, for the first time, she had done something without needing anyone to save her. We ate dinner in quiet. Lily showed off her journal. She had added a purple maple leaf. Noah told us about the baby squirrels in the woods. Clara served vegetables to the kids, then quietly slid some onto my plate like it was second nature. I looked at her, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel a wall between us. No apology needed, no promises, no forced, "I've changed." I saw it, I felt it, and in that moment I understood. Forgiveness doesn't always come through words. Sometimes it comes in the form of small, repeated acts, steady, sincere, without fanfare or performance. Like the first white chrysanthemum after winter. It doesn't ask for permission to bloom, but it blooms anyway. Clara started work on a lightly sunny Monday morning after several days of rain. She wore a pale pink blouse, one I hadn't seen her wear since she arrived, and tied her hair back neatly. Her eyes no longer carried confusion or defensiveness. As she stepped out the door, she said simply, "I'll be back before 5. You don't need to pick up Lily. I arranged with the school bus." I just nodded, watching her figure disappear down the trail that led to the town bus stop. No one revisited old wounds. No one held anyone back, afraid of being left behind. For the first time in years, Clara wasn't leaving because she needed me. She was leaving for herself. Lily and Noah adapted to Aspenbrook like they'd belonged here all along. Noah helped Grace harvest carrots in her garden and was invited inside to see her husband's rock collection. Lily followed me to the weekend farmer's market, learning to name each herb. "This is mint, this is rosemary, this one helps with digestion." One day, Lily brought home a drawing from school, a little wooden house, a garden full of chrysanthemums, a porch with 2 women, one with long hair, one with short, and 2 children playing with squirrels. In the bottom corner, scribbled in large, uneven letters, "My new home." I folded the drawing and tucked it into the drawer under my desk. Not on the wall, not to show anyone, just kept, like a quiet reminder that sometimes love doesn't need claiming. It only needs to stay in the right way. Jonas started visiting more often, not for any particular reason. Sometimes with a bundle of dried rosemary, sometimes just a bag of ripe oranges or a few wood planks to fix the shelf I nearly gave up on. He never asked about Clara, never mentioned the kids. He simply kept talking about plants, the weather, and occasionally about the kinds of silences that are necessary between grown-ups. One afternoon, I was on the porch trimming the chrysanthemums when he placed a small wooden box beside me. "Made this for you. For your seeds." I opened it. Inside were hand-sanded compartments, a sliding lid. On top, carved, a bit unevenly, were the words, "For what you choose to grow again." I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. Jonas didn't need to explain. He knew I understood, and somehow that kind of understanding without explanation, it felt like something I once believed existed only in books. Clara came home on time each day. Sometimes tired, sometimes quiet, but never complaining. One evening, I found her carefully mending the strap on Lily's school bag, stitching it by hand. I almost said, "Let me do that." But I didn't. Not because I didn't want to help, but because I had learned. Helping at the wrong moment steals someone else's chance to stand up. Late one evening, with the first winter wind slipping through the door frames, Clara made tea and sat beside me on the porch. Jonas had just left, a basket of red apples and radish seeds by the door. We sat in silence. The kids were already asleep. Clara looked up at the sky, where a thin band of stars peeked through the pine canopy. "I never thought we'd be able to sit like this and not feel uncomfortable." I smiled slightly. "Neither did I. I used to think that if you forgave me, things would just go back to how they were. But now I think, maybe they don't need to. Maybe it's enough to learn how to live alongside each other, with respect. That's already more than I ever hoped for." I nodded, and in that quiet moment I knew that was the deepest apology Clara could give. No dramatics, no tears, just a woman who once took trust for granted, now learning how to stay with grace and self-respect. The next morning, I stepped into the garden, opened the seed box Jonas made, and began placing in my dried packets: kale, dill, white chrysanthemum, mint. I labeled each section with small, careful handwriting, then slid the lid closed. Outside, the light was soft. Inside, I heard Lily's laughter as Clara called Noah to get ready for school. I didn't know how long this would last. Clara might move out once she was stable. Jonas might stop dropping by. The kids would grow, have their own worlds. But I knew one thing. What remained in me wasn't resentment. It was boundaries. Clear, steady, and unlocked. Because now I understood. The ones who know how to knock, they're the ones who get to enter. Not because they have the right, but because they've learned to respect someone else's space. And here, in this little house at the edge of the woods, a place born of silence and solitude, there is now children's laughter, the smell of warm bread, garden beds needing water each morning, and sometimes a man who leaves a basket of oranges without ever asking to step inside. I choose who stays. I choose what's worth keeping. And for the first time, I know I'm living a life I've grown by my own hands.